All right, welcome, Courtney. I'm so excited. We're back. We're back at it again. Um, I would love for you to start by just introducing who you are, like how people know you, and then maybe the person that you are today that people aren't as familiar with.
Well, hello. Thanks for having me. I've been so looking forward to this, and I really enjoyed that little meditation we just did. I have to say, before we started recording, I'm Courtney Robertson, Preciado now. I changed my name when I got married. And you might remember me from The Bachelor season 16. I was the skinny dipper. I was the ring winner, so to speak, to Ben Flajnik. He was the winemaker from Sonoma, not Ben Higgins. I get asked that a lot. I'm like, no, 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 no. This is the winemaker. Um, and I also, unfortunately, ended up being the villain of my season. So people loved to hate me. And then I went on to write a book that was titled I Didn't Come Here to Make Friends, Confessions of a Reality Show Villain. Very tough to pull off. And uh, it ended up being a New York Times bestseller. And it was really fun to pull back the veil for the fans of the show and for them to get to know me a little bit better. And now you find me, I moved back to my hometown, Arizona, about 8 years ago after being in LA for, gosh, almost 14 years. And I'm by family, I'm married, I have three kids. I have a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old daughter, and an 18-month-old son. So boy, girl, boy. And yeah, we're in the holiday season right now, so full of holiday magic. And yeah, so that's kind of how you might know me, maybe from social media as well. I just have fun with it. I have a love-hate with social media, but I post a lot about my family and that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Love that. And I don't think I mentioned this to you last time, but I've been wanting to interview you for like quite some time. 'Cause there's this YouTube channel called Bachelor Fan Take, and he creates these like, I don't know, they're like commentaries about past Bachelor seasons, and you were in a few of the videos as like the top villains, and I was like, oh, she's so cool. Like I remember watching her live and just being like you were so iconic on
Oh,
that season, and um I feel like we've seen this with Parvati too, as like the reality TV villains, especially the women at the time were really cannibalized, but in hindsight people are like people call Parv like mother, and they're like, oh my gosh, like just it's like it's a different time now where people actually appreciate that presence in
hmm.
reality TV.
Oh, it's changed so much, and that's a really good take on it for sure. At the time, I didn't feel iconic personally, but like I was getting such mixed reviews, and that was just like so much to the chest and to process and digest, Callie. Like I was on the cover of Us Weekly, like the main story for like 5 weeks in a row. Like the man eater and shameless seduction. And that was like when tabloids were really big. And it's nice that it's shifted somewhat to that narrative of being like, oh, you're iconic. Or like even when I had you on my podcast, you talking about like how you watched my season and you enjoyed it and you digested that in a different way. So it's definitely a lot more positive now that I've like processed it fully, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. And even going into like really focusing in on the season, because I did just watch it.
Oh boy.
I rented it, or I bought it on Apple
Are we still
TV.
friends? I know it's so wild. Some of them
Yeah.
are like free on Hulu or whatever platform, and mine is like you have to like pay for it, or I think it's because it's probably just so old.
Yeah, it's like a lot of the seasons I aren't available on Hulu, but that was one of them. So, but yes, I I really enjoyed um the commentary that got you in trouble personally. And I also had to skip some things because especially the women tell all, the part where
Mm.
you came out, I was trying to watch it so I could be informed for this. But it was so hard to watch, I had to turn it off. So I can't imagine what it was like to live through.
I'm getting sweaty palms just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Even now, when I watch, recent seasons and they do the tell-alls, and I know this one villain or somebody who was perceived that way, I get like a little PTSD. That was like a really, and I don't blame you because I mean, that's not good TV. I mean, I don't know if that's fun for people to watch. It wasn't fun to live, I'll tell you that much, let alone be engaged to the guy at the same time. I think that was I think I am the only ring winner to ever go to I or whatever you want to call it, winner,
Hmm.
the final rose to go to the women tell all. And that in itself has never been done. And I just knew I had to stick up for myself.
Yeah. I'm kind of speechless with all of that because it was just like so. I mean, I'm gonna go in a different direction even
Yeah.
because
You
that
fly this
that
plane,
feels like
girl.
so heavy. And like yeah, so I'm gonna go and ask a different question, just to kind of get us in a different because like the we would tell all we could spiral in that really fast.
Oh,
Um,
for sure.
so when you first arrived on Ben's season, before the dynamics actually took shape, so like before everything kind of crystallized into what it ended up being and with the women and everything, what were you most oriented towards? Like connection, protection? What was happening for you when you arrived on his season?
Gosh, that's a really great question. Really great question. You know, I had done commercials. I'd never really been on television. I at all. I did like a little reality TV show like Survivor when I lived in New Zealand, which was super fun. So I don't want people to be like, she's lying, but it was very short-lived. I had a lot on my mind as far as like, okay, I could be gone for one night or I could be gone for 2.5 months. They're
Mm,
going to take my phone. That was at the time stressful for me. But going into it, like and in my book, I fully admitted, like I was like still seeing ex-boyfriends. Like I wasn't going into it like I was like, I might like this guy, like almost like a first date. But I watched Ben's season and he got down on one knee, which I was like, I cannot, it's so horrible that they let him do that. And then put a ring out and then she lifted him up by the elbow and was like, I'm so sorry. So I watched the show loosely, I guess, to kind of walk it back before going on. Like I watched Jillian Harris's season, a little bit of Ali Fedotowsky's, but like not religiously. But I had just gone through a breakup and I had watched the finale of his season because my sister watched and like with her friends and I just wanted to be able to like chit chat at with my girls about it. And I was like, I texted my sister watching that live and I said, should I bet they're gonna make this guy the Bachelor. Should I sign up? And she's like, do it. And so I go online, I send like a very generic, like uploaded a couple of my modeling pictures and like they called me like the next day or the day after that. So it all happened very quickly for me. Um, but to answer your question, going into it, I was very hesitant. I mean, even before they took my phone, I texted my ex, who was a celebrity at the time that I or is a celebrity, and just saying like, "Hey, I had already told people that were pretty close to me that I was doing the show. I'm not going to have my phone." So I actually was just going in blind, really. But I was like thinking about an ex-boyfriend for sure. Like,
when you arrived?
well, yeah, because you're kind of sequestered for a couple of days before night one.
Mm.
And then I didn't have my phone for a couple of days. And then I started feeling like, okay, I'm settling into this. I'm just in a hotel room. I'm meeting producers, kind of seeing how things work. And then it kind of shifts into like, what are you going to do when I think that's when the dynamic changed for me of like, oh, they're trying to like get me to do something spectacular when I walk out of the limo. And I guess that's when I kind of had to like start setting boundaries of like, I'm not gonna, let's just say, roll down the driveway in a wine barrel. Like I'm gonna be me. Like I'm gonna just walk up, say hi. It's already so nerve-wracking. And I had bowed out of doing the show. I was like, I just don't think I can do this. This is like too much. And they said just go night one. If you like him, Or they said, we think you're really gonna like him, but if you don't, well, you can leave night one. So I kind of had that one foot in, one foot out. And when I had you on, I talked about being like anxious and that kind of thing, like having an exit strategy. So
Mm,
I was kind of just going in like, I'll meet him, I'll know right away if I like him, and if I don't, then I'm out of here
that's really interesting. Yeah.
to like
And I
protect
love that.
myself.
Yeah, and I love that they actually like kind of gave you that option of because it does sound like a lot to even get on the show. You talk about the time in the hotel where you're doing all these things and you're getting tested for STDs and they're giving you psych evaluations and like that just sounds like so much to even get to night one. So it's really nice that they said if you're not feeling it with him, you can dip.
That's what I did. Yeah, I think I said no after that whole it's like a hotel by LAX because they fly people in from all over the country and then they fly them out after the psych eval. You talk to a private detective, yeah, the blood work, all that good stuff. And then they brought me in a room with one camera. I had been there. I lived in Santa Monica, so I just went and drove over. I was like, I'm not staying here, but like I'll do the testing was like all day. Um, Anyway, long story short, I actually like when I got home, I threw up. Like I like felt like my body was like having like this reaction to like the whole thing that was like, no, this doesn't feel right. So I called him the next day. I was like, I just don't think this is for me. And so that's when we had that conversation. They called me back later and they're like,
Mm.
oh, and at that point we didn't know it was Ben. And then because I said I would only want to do it if it is him. Because at the time it was possibly another guy from Ashley Abear's season. So they said it is him. We want you to know that. We really want you to do this. So yeah, but it's just a wild process to go through. So I gave it a couple days and then I agreed to sign on.
And that's so interesting too with the my perspective as somatic practitioner and reading your book. And when you said that you came back, there was actually two things I wanted to ask you about in that vein. Of the first being after that day at the hotel of, interviews and everything, you came home and you threw up, but that's such a um, intense response from the body. And then another that you mentioned several times in your book is that you said no one was pooping. I don't know if you're
Yes.
like open to talking about that, but that is
Yes.
like that. You said it was like weeks. That is
Yes.
crazy. And I just feel like that is such a symptom of stress or something. I don't know. Can you just like speak to
Oh,
that?
absolutely. It's like one of my proudest favorite parts of my book. Um, so, and if you've ever traveled or you're newly in a relationship and you're traveling together, like I'm an expert, like down to the hotel lobby, I'm gonna go get a cup of coffee. Like I hate to say a shy pooper, but like you're living in a hotel, let's say with 23 girls and like they would give you like the presidential suites like on our first one of our no our second travel location. The food was incredible from ABC, but your body is like so out of whack. And sometimes when I've traveled in the past, like I'm sensitive, like Montezuma's Revenge, like,
Mm.
careful with the water. But yeah, nobody was going to the bathroom. Like it was like a real thing. And I think we were in Utah, which was like early on into filming, probably the third episode. And they'd have handlers. So, like, you could write down a list of what you wanted. I'd be like, can I? And you'd give them your debit card, which I think is funny. Like, so, like, I wanted like kombucha and Think Thin bars. So I'd be like, just buy me a box of Think Thin bars. Like, I don't want to be hangry. I don't want to over serve myself with alcohol because that's always available to you. Um, but yeah, somebody came in, the handler, and was like, "We got the suppositories or whatever they are." And all the women early on started doing them, and I had never done it. And it's like, I don't know if your listeners want to hear all about this, but I had never done one. And so it had been like a very long time. So we went from Utah, gosh, I wish I could
It's
say.
a lot, like 3 weeks without pooping. I think I would burst.
Oh, I was like trying to go and I'd be like, "Oh, maybe today's the day." And I don't know what it was. I drank tons of water. I was eating my pretty much healthy, like the same way I did at home. But it got to a point where we were in Puerto Rico, and my best friend on the show, we're still dear friends to this day, Casey Steamer,
Mm.
and a producer that I'm also best friends with. We've like traveled together, and she was my handler at the end in Switzerland. But I was like, something's got to happen. So they went and got laxatives for us. And we're in Puerto Rico. And we're like, let's just like, we're all like, we've never done this. And I'm like, I'm gonna just take one. Let's just see how one goes. And then my friend Casey's like, no, we really need this to work. Let's take two. And the producer friend of mine is like, I think we should take three. I know, right? So we take three, and this is, mind you, like let's just say 11 o'clock Puerto Rico time, and nothing's happening. We're all feeling great. We're like, yay, nothing's crazy's happening. And then we hear a knock on the door, and it's like the date card arrives. I wish I had in front of me what it said, but they read the names, and sure as shit, it was me and my friend Casey Steamer, and we just looked at each other, like, because it's the next day, and we looked at each other like, oh, you can actually go back and see that moment between us. And that night, right? Okay, I'm just gonna trim the fat here. Her and I were up all night, and she was sleeping in a room across the way from me, and there was only two bathrooms, so like we were like crossing paths. And in the morning, she walked in, and like they have a little kitchen area, and like there's no way I'm having coffee. And we just looked at each other, and she looked at me, and she all she did was just shook her head. And then the producer came in because they sleep, in a hotel, different rooms. And she's like, wow, I think I know what childbirth is like now. So it was like, but it was so uncomfortable. Like it was a scene from Dumb and Dumber. Just,
Yeah, it sounds like it. I think you in the book you say something like it's a mix of the scene from Dumb and Dumber and Bridesmaids
oh,
when she like twists
yes.
herself in the street.
And the
And
funny part about it was like the date was like far to get to. We had to take like a bus. We were on a bus with no bathroom.
I can't even like think about that.
And then we were in a stadium like playing baseball with these like hot Puerto Rican baseball like players. And I didn't know this at the time, but like I think I like exercised everything, the demons out. But my friend
Hmm.
spent the whole time in like a stadium bathroom. Yes, like go having to go. And you cannot in the show, you can't just wander off. So like a handler has to go with you. And I remember her saying like it was a guy, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I just was so embarrassed. Like they were standing outside the bathroom waiting for me."
Oh my gosh. That
So, PSA,
I
don't
think I
take
would leave.
three. Three is no bueno.
If you leave with nothing from this podcast, don't take three laxatives in Puerto Rico. If I was
Just
Casey, I probably would have left after that.
she was mortified.
So speaking of the groups dynamic,
So speaking of a group date,
so speaking of group things, I want to reframe because there was like so much conflict on the season. Um, And I really feel like it was pointed, like I said, I just watched the season. It was very much pointed as like this person was the instigator, like scapegoating. And first I feel like it was Blakely and then it was you as the scapegoat,
Mhm.
when really what was lost on everyone, I think in the micro during the moment and the macro when it came out after, was that this is like a behavior that happens in a dysfunctional system. And so, what do you think happens to attachment patterns with Ben, with the women, everything, when a group of women are placed in constant comparison for someone's attention like this?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. That's deep. I wish I had the answer, but I could speak to my experience, and I've talked to some of the women since then, but I think there's two things in play. I think, some of these women were a lot younger. It's not about age, but like some have never even left their hometowns. And it's exciting. You get there, you're in your own hotel room. Everything, for the most part, is on ABC's dime. You got
Mm.
producers like, oh, no, 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 don't get up. We'll get you whatever you want. Do you want champagne? Do you want a glass of water? You're in Sonoma, San Francisco, you know, Calabasas. And I think what I noticed is people were excited to be there. I guess this is a three part. And then the second part I would say is it's so exciting, but like, how do I say this? Like, there's when the cameras are on and the cameras aren't on. So like I am a person who really likes consistency with people that I like are around constantly. And
Mm-hmm.
like I personally really struggled with people how they acted off camera versus when the cameras started filming. Um, but yeah, and then the third part, where was I going with this? Oh gosh, there's so many parts. I mean, seriously, but
Mm-hmm.
I think in that dynamic where he is charming, you meet him, you're excited to be there. He seemingly seems like he's ready to get engaged, and there's a lot of side chatter. It's like almost like high school, like that like mean girl feeling, if that makes sense. Like
Mm-hmm.
that starts happening right away. But oh, I was starting to talk about like how people treat like producers and all that kind of stuff. So the producers really are the people that you do your interviews with, and that's like a safe place where you go in the room and they might even talk a little trash about a contestant that you're having something kind of coming up with. And I think that's where I got in the most trouble on the show is my ITMs, like they call it ITM in the moment. But I think a lot of people felt very close with the producers. And I think that there's a lot more pot stirring that goes on behind the scenes that viewers might not realize. I had no clue about it. And I truly, I mean, I'm still friends with some of the producers, but I hope that answers your question. Like it's a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, it's like what I'm hearing you say is that it's a very controlled environment. That is, the goal is to create chaos and conflict, and then that's what happened. And
Yeah, throw some alcohol onto that. And I just
hmm
remember like women, like the girls, like early on were like drinking all day. And, the food was always around for the most part. But there were times where it's like, oh, maybe you should have had a little bit more lunch because everybody wants to look good on camera. Just
mm,
a lot of moving parts. But yeah, Blakely and I got along early on for the most part. She was a little bit bossy with the producers, like get me this or get me that, and I really didn't like that quality in her. It was very unattractive to me. She even did it to me a few times. I'm like, I'm not your assistant. Like,
mm,
you're a big girl. Get up and get it yourself.
hmm
But yeah, and then I know specifically when KCB had her first one-on-one date, his first one-on-one date, and then I had the second one in Sonoma, which is, by the way, like the first episode or second episode. Um, Yeah, like when she handed me the date card, I made a little crack at her, and that was when people didn't that's when the tides shifted for me.
in the group dynamic.
Yeah, in the group
Mm.
dynamic. And because and to expand on that, so I had this like amazing one-on-one date. We had a lot of off-camera time together, which most of the time you don't get. They let us drive in the same car to a portion of the group date. And it's funny, the producers were in the front seat. We were in the back of this van and we're like just talking and like we were not allowed to have phones, but like he asked one of the producers for the phones because we were connecting over music. And I was like, oh, this is one of my favorite bands. Let me play you one of my favorite songs. He's like, I love them too. And this is like an off the wall band. Like, so, but they were like, save it for the cameras. They try to like silence you because they really want to catch
Mm.
those real moments on camera, which obviously can't be over music, but um, we had a like I was like, wow, this is like cool. Like I got to see a little bit more of a relaxed side to him on this one-on-one date. But when I came back, it was just like from this date, I just had a target on my back. And I remember going into the cocktail portion of the night, we sat down and like people were trying to make rules for the night. They're like, Courtney shouldn't get any time with him because
Yeah.
she had a one-on-one date with him this week. And I was just like, no, that's not how this works. Like I just had a date with him. I'm excited to see him. It's been a night, like and recap on and see him. So I kind of put my foot down on that. Like you can't shape my experience. Like why are we putting rules on this weird, I don't know, experiment?
Yeah, I feel like quite early on there was um a lot of intensity and insecurity and weird really just catty, disgusting behavior from certain people in the group that were,
Yes.
it was like mob mentality that happened really quickly. And like
Oh
on that
yeah.
point, we touched on this in last week when we filmed for your podcast, but um, this whole idea of being labeled as the villain, I think you have experienced it in this very, on a huge scale that not many people will actually experience because it's just a giant scale. And also, I think people experience this all the times on a smaller scale in their lives where it's like a family member that
Mm.
does a smear campaign against you, or a group of friends that
Horrible.
turn on you, or even just like one person that you're, whether it's like an ex, a romantic relationship, or at work, it's whatever it is, you get labeled as the villain or the bad guy. And I think no matter who you are and what scale it is, it can always be like this struggle to process that label because no one wants to be perceived as like a bad person. And so I'm just curious, like when it came to you being labeled the villain, because they were extremely explicit with that label. It wasn't implied, it was explicitly stated. How did being labeled the villain, what did that do for you internally? Like what happened for you? And was there moments where you feel like that role kind of gave you power? And were there moments where you feel like it kind of cost you safety?
So I had no clue I was going to be the villain, to be honest. Like I knew that there had been drama like with the girls in the house, but I the way I viewed it playing out on to national television wasn't what happened. So I'm watching night one. I'm in
Can I
Santa
just say
Monica.
something really fast too?
Yeah.
The editing is insane. Every time you're talking, they play alien music. It's like,
Yes.
I'm like, what the heck? Like, she's literally just saying, like, oh, I'm really glad to be here and I'm really clicking with Ben. And it's like, like in the
Oh.
background. And I was like, sorry, carry on. I just wanted to add, like,
Oh,
the editing really, like, did you no favors.
at all. It really
Yeah.
didn't. And I actually went on a few dates with an editor who worked on my season years later when I was single. Such a funny story. But um yeah, I'm watching night one and I'm like, holy moly, like this is not good. And I'm like excited. I'm engaged. I can't wait to get my ring back. Like I've already had happy couples. We just spent Thanksgiving together. Like I'm feeling truly engaged to this person. Like we survived this process. My hair was falling out. Like I had so much stress. Like
Wow.
I flew home from Switzerland straight to my parents' house, like with my suitcases for Thanksgiving. And then Ben snuck in and we did like, because he has Arizona roots as well. Like we
Mm,
actually had mutual best friends. Like there was a lot that we had in common. Um, but yeah, I didn't feel that way while filming. I just thought like, oh, like I'm sticking up for myself. Like everyone's gonna get to see this full story of like, but what wasn't shown, I mean, it doesn't matter what wasn't shown. Like I have friends that are producers, so like if it wasn't on camera, it doesn't count.
mm,
So like let's say I'm in an interview and I'm saying this like, oh, well, Emily said this to me or Blakely did this if it wasn't on camera, they're not going to play that. And because
mm,
they clearly I talked to Jason Mesnick, Molly Mesnick's
mm-hmm,
husband. He was one of the earlier bachelors who did the
mm-hmm.
switcheroo with
I
Michelle
remember, yeah.
Rycroft. Yeah. And he and I love the connections I've made since the show. But he told me that he was in LA and he popped in to see producer friends at NZK is what it's called, their production part of it, not Warner. And they had my full cast list on the wall and a picture of me, and under it it said villain. And that was before we even left for filming. Yeah. This is and I just
Wow.
had Molly on my podcast and she's like, "Oh yeah, it's clear." I was like, "Let me just reconfirm this." And so
Whoa,
they
that's crazy.
yeah, they knew and I afterwards like one of the EPs, a female EP said to me like, "We've just never had like a professional model on the show. We just kind of had to do it to you."
I was
And I
gonna ask if it was because you were a model and because you're beautiful, and that can naturally create some insecurity in group dynamics.
well, yeah, and like I gosh, there's so much I could say to this. It's bringing it up for me, and not in like in a negative way, because I've like processed it in many
Hmm.
ways, but it is fascinating to me now. Like they filmed in Santa Monica, like my house, and before I even left for filming, like a package on me. Like I got, like the people that go far, when you watch the show, you're like, oh, they're doing like a highlight of them. They went to their house in like Sam McKinney, let's say, and saw what he does and his dogs. And I just remember being like, oh, I feel good about that. Like I talked about being heartbroken after my 7-year relationship ended. And they asked me something like, well, if you make it to the end, like what kind of ring do you want? And I said something like, it was like, hi, I'm Courtney. I'm a model. I live in Santa Monica, right, to start. And then it was like, what kind of ring do you want? Like later on, like probably 3 hours later. And it was like, oh, I would love, I mean, a big ring would be nice. And that's all they showed. It was like, hi, I'm Courtney. Like I deserve a big ring. Like it's just, and I hate to blame editing, but there was frankenbiting, and I know from like what I was wearing,
Hmm.
there were things that I said in a totally different country because I know what I was wearing in that interview or that shirt, and they keep that well organized as well, where I'm like, that wasn't even on that day, or that was like completely out of order. But yeah, it was maybe a little bit snarky, but maybe I was talking about the weather.
That's crazy.
And I
That,
love to pull back the veil because the backlash and the blowback, it was very embarrassing to me. It was, I think that's not shame, but it was embarrassment. Like I had people that had known me my whole life that were like, you look ridiculous. Like, why did you do this show? Like, you look horrible. Like, like questioning, like, do we even know you?
I feel like this was really in a time too, because I feel like now people are still nasty on the internet, no matter what, but I feel like there's more of a stream of awareness around like, oh, reality TV, people like these are people. And I do feel like 10, 15 years ago, there was no, people were not in touch with that at all. Like they really
Oh,
ate it
it
up as though it was like a story, like
It
a
was the
fictional
wild,
story.
wild west. And
Yeah.
I think, honestly, I'd say a lot about podcasting. That wasn't around. Like, we didn't
Mm.
have this, like, this space, right? Instagram had just started, Twitter, 140 characters. We weren't allowed to do any of that to, like, stick up for yourself. Um, and I've been listening to Parvati Shallow's book because her and I have a lot in common. But
Hmm.
like I was dating Jesse Metcalf from The Real Housewives. And sorry, what was it called? Oh God, I can't remember the show he was on with Ava Longoria. He was
Oh,
like
Desperate Housewives?
Desperate Housewives. And Perez Hilton was, there would be like paparazzi shots of us at like going to Hollywood clubs, and it would like, he would like dribble, like, right, like put like white stuff around my mouth, like an
Oh,
ink,
yeah.
and he'd write like butt ugly, like about my outfits. And like, so I had already dealt with like some public backlash, but like it was more geared towards him because I
Hmm.
never wanted to be an actress. But like, it was, it took, I will say, and I think this is the takeaway. It took me a long time to rebuild myself, and I lost a huge sense of self because I found myself. That's why I love your content so much. Like, trying to prove myself to people like, no, I'm really not that bad, or this is who I am. And um, I had life coaching, and I just, you know, I went through a public breakup. I mean, we were together for a year. I was pretty devastated when that relationship ended. We later, years beyond that, like connected again, and we're like, wow, like what was that? Like, we're both older, wiser now. Like, maybe we should try to date again. And ultimately that was, I think things worked out the way that they were, but like I can now look back and be like, I don't remember everything. That's why I'm glad I wrote the book when I did, but I'm
Hmm.
I'm glad I did it. If you asked me that right after the breakup, I said I regret doing the show. I mean, it changed the trajectory of my life immensely. So I kind of had to make lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah, completely. And you mentioned too, you just said it was hard for me to kind of like you lost some of who you felt like you were, or you lost the thread of your identity. And so when it came to that, what helped you begin to separate who you really were versus who you were portrayed to be, which I feel like after talking with you and after reading your book and watching the season, there's quite a large gap between who you are and who they were portraying you as. So what
Yeah.
helped you to start to separate those things out?
Oh man. Well, for a while it was red wine and it was
Fair enough.
staying in and it was just like feeling safe and like figuring out who I could trust.
Mm,
I actually planted seeds because people were selling stories on me. An ex-boyfriend of mine sold nude photos of me for $20,000. And learning how to work the media was a huge, I mean, you don't know. Like, I mean, I became friends with people that I thought could maybe help clean up my image a little bit, because I wanted to do that. I didn't watch my show until I wrote my book because it was
mm,
just too, and I think that did me a disservice. I will say that. Like, but I was in the relationship. I didn't want to see him making out with other girls, and like
hmm
I was getting backlash from him and Ellen DeGeneres and every which way till Tuesday. But um, you know what? Looking back, I probably should have gone on antidepressants then.
hmm
Which I did after my second baby because I had postpartum anxiety. But I don't have like it honestly was just time. A lot of time. Dating was hard for a while, and I really went inward. I did. I was kind of a loner for a while, and then that got really lonely.
hmm I feel like
I'm
that makes
sorry.
sense.
I feel like that's like not like I wish there was like some knock it out of the park answer, but I just really I had to like feel it all.
Yeah, I don't think that there is like a clean cut answer. I know, like, in my own personal experiences of being portrayed as a villain, it's like there's a relational rupture that happens and like a lack of trust, especially on a bigger scale where it's like you kind of lose trust in the world. And
Yes.
so for myself, that made me very closed. So I really can imagine that after something like that, you're just like, okay, I think I'm gonna,
Shut down a little bit. Yeah.
yeah.
I was pretty depressed and I remember I watched like Downton Abbey and like there were days I was also dealing with like being out in the wild and like people wanting to meet me from the show and dealing with that. It's like a little awkward at times because people come up and then they're nervous and I'm an empath. I instantly feel that and like trying to like I'm like, why am I trying to prove myself to somebody that I don't even know? And they're asking me very
Mm,
personal questions, like, but I would say after the breakup happened, that was when the shift changed. I remember I moved on right away and I was still very much so in it. Like I felt like I was trying to prove myself to Ben the whole time too. Like, I think he questioned my character when it aired, and that was really hurtful to me because I'm like, I've told you everything. I told you what that girl said to me off camera and but whatever. But I started dating R.A. Dyke. He slid into my DMs and he's now married. He became the Bachelor later on, which was also a little bit hard for
mm,
me because we had been kind of dating at the time when they offered it to him. But we had a great friendship. But anyway, I remember Ben calling me, and the time was not good. We started like a picture surfaced of us, like probably like a week or two after we broke up. Just give me grace on the timelines. This was a long time ago. And he did an interview, Ben did, and it said, I should have listened to the girls. And and it was like so cutting to me. It was like he hit me where he knew it would hurt most because he was hurt. And that was the day I decided to write a book. I was like, I'm so
mm,
tired of being getting kicked while I'm down. And that was super empowering, super, I mean, I know you have a book that you've been working on that's coming out, which I'm so excited for
mm.
you. But that was also caused a lot of anxiety. And I realized to tell my story that I couldn't really be in a relationship because I was going to be talking about everything that had happened in my life from puberty, learning about sex, um, the fantasy suites because of course you want to know what that looks like for the fans and
Mhm.
like the timing of it all. I really wanted to do that and I'm proud of it because it ended up doing really well and I kind of I kind of felt like after that I kind of moved on from it all, but I was definitely severely depressed. There was a moment in time, trigger warning, that I had like kind of there was one time in my life where I had like suicidal ideology. And I remember it was like a really tough moment. I was supposed to do Bachelor in Paradise the first season. I was dating somebody that I really liked. My book was about to come out, and he was like not cool with it. I was like, I said I would do the next show if they helped me get my book approved, ABC that
Mm.
is. And he wasn't having it. And I was like, man, I really like this guy. I'd said I'd do the show so I could write this book. And he's like, what's going to be in the book? And I just was like, man, this would be so much easier if I wasn't here. And I was like,
Mm.
whoa. And I called my friend Casey from the
Mm.
show, and she kind of brought me back. I wasn't going to act on it. And you feel free to take this out. But I think that was like a rock bottom moment. And to kind
Mm.
of soften what we're talking about, and I don't think I've really truly ever admitted that on like a podcast, but like daily rituals for me became like going to the farmer's market,
Mm.
doing yoga at 6 a.m. at Equinox in Santa Monica. But something that I did quite frequently was go down to the beach because I lived 10 blocks from the beach, and I'd watch the sunrise with a cup of coffee every morning. And I was like, it's a new day. It's a new day.
Mm.
Like it's a fresh start. And that's something that I still do to this day, just like a little ritual.
Mm-hmm. Like those little moments and things that kind of bring you back to yourself. And knowing there's, I mean, I don't know when it's like to that scale of so much chatter about who you are. I feel like
My
those,
jaw's getting tense. I'm like,
yeah, of like, um, the things that bring you back to yourself. And I'm curious too if there
yes.
was like any connections that you had with people, like romantic or friendship or familial, that during that time started to help you kind of feel like this is who I really am and like these are safe connections and yeah.
My dad and my sister, of course, but the show really affected them. So like I had to kind of like be like, I'm okay, like everything's fine, but like picture comes out or another story comes out or this happens. Like that's when I say like it took years to kind of get to a place of normalcy for me. Like what feels normal to me. Like I can leave the house and not, in my pajamas and not be recognized, but my support system that I built, you know, since that time, I'm surrounded by really good people that get it and they know my deepest, darkest secrets. And I could call, they'd be there for me in a second, and I'd be there for them. But yeah, just sense of community too. That was huge. Like, because I was always a person. Like, I know people at the farmer's market and hell, like, they'd be like, oh my God, we saw this week's episode. Like, how are you doing?
Mm,
And I felt like my sense of community was rocked too.
mm,
Like I'm like everybody's looking at me so differently, and that was so so hard. I don't even think I've ever really admitted that. But Arizona, coming to see my family, just
mm.
laying low, that was good for me.
What's coming to mind for me is like when I was getting canceled, I would just
I
lay
can't
on.
believe anybody would cancel you. I'll get
Well, I
them.
mean, the same to you, but people need things to do with their free time, I guess. I would like lie on the ground, starfish style, and like really just feel like the solidity of the ground and be like, I'm here, like I'm okay. And in when it's happening on a phone, I feel like I could put my phone away and pretend it didn't exist for a bit.
Hmm.
But I also, yeah, I mean, it's just interesting to hear that like even some of your relationships that were normally really grounding were like a little impacted because like what you're saying
Yeah.
of yeah.
Oh, one of my best friends I'm no longer friends with of since kindergarten. I mean, I will say it really weeded out the good and the bad. And that was maybe over, I think, because I put her name in the book over something
Mm,
else. But there was no words to it. Like we never talked. Like she just stopped talking to me. I'm like, this is really weird. Like that's anyway. But you're really good at connecting like a a through line with what you do in your work. And I appreciate you acknowledging that. I'm like learning stuff live with you right now. Um, but yeah, even now, I mean, I still have that thing in me where like social functions or like my kids are in kindergarten now, and I still have that little thing that's like
Mm,
somebody's gonna want to talk about The Bachelor and or they're gonna know that I was on it. And it's just something that just for better or for worse is just with you. And when were talking about laying on the ground and feeling safe, I mean, the beach was a very healing place for me as well. And um, oh gosh, there's like so much about Santa Monica. It's just like a vortex, you know? And
hmm
then I had to get out of there because I was in a toxic relationship at the time. And I realized my family's not getting any younger. My dad and my sister's had just having her third baby. So I moved back home to Arizona. And I think that
mm.
was a major life shift for me. But I'm sorry, I was starting to say when you were like talking about laying on the ground and feeling safe, I think it's safety. And when I left Santa Monica, I had like an active stalker.
Oh my
And
God.
yeah, and rent control in LA is like a big deal. Like I had this bungalow with this amazing yard and a one bedroom bungalow for like 1,900 bucks, which would probably go for like 4 grand now.
Hmm
And he was like outside my bedroom window in my yard. Like then I put spotlights up. Like, yeah. So like I just felt unsafe there. And so I left. And I rented it out to a friend of mine, a sublease, and he one night came home, the window was open. He had cash on the table, his computer, the front door was wide open, and the person, whoever it was a guy, I saw him a few times, had broken in and took nothing. Didn't realize I had moved, so.
Wow.
But like talk about safety. Like I watch a lot enough true crime to like, you know,
Yeah, thank God he moved.
yeah.
And
And by the way, feel free to take all this out. I'm just like having a digital
no,
download.
I mean I it's okay. It's like all of it's welcome. It's that's just shocking to hear. I'm like that's scary and I'm glad you got out of that before it something happened.
I'm glad I
Um
got out of the toxic relationship.
yeah. And when you mentioned too like now you're in such a different place where you're like a parent and you're going to these functions as an adult with your kids. And I'm curious because I don't have kids, and I'm just very curious of like how did becoming a parent, especially a parent to a daughter, how did that change if it did the way that you relate to your younger self on the show?
Yes, that's a really good question. I haven't thought much about it. And when I started dating my husband, he was like, "What are we going to tell our kids someday if
Mm.
they read your book and you're talking about, the reverse cowgirl in the fantasy suites?" And I was I was like, "Hey, look, we're going to tell mom wrote a New York Times best-selling book.
Hell yeah.
She worked really hard at it, and
Mm.
you know." It's like everybody poops. It's like I don't want to like shame around that part of life. Uh but yeah, I mean, I see so much of myself in my daughter. She's like the middle child. She's so funny, and I just want to protect her at all cost. I just had a conversation with my former life coach the other day. We meet every once in a while. We're just like really good friends now, and
Mm.
she's a mom. Her kids are much older, and she was talking about how her kids don't do slumber parties at all. And she's like, I have done so much of this work. And I've just realized like it's not like the parent, it's like the somebody that's grooming them or the neighbor or the uncle. And so her kids are totally fine with it. They don't do sleepovers. And I want to protect my daughter at all costs. And like so I'm entertaining the idea right now of like that. Like I am like taking it as it comes, trying to be the best mom that I can be. And yeah, at some point, the show stuff, we haven't talked to them about it. Like they see my podcast pop up or they'll hear it if it pops up on in the car. And I'm like, that's mommy's work. Like I have a radio show. But did that answer the question at all?
Yeah. And I'm curious too, like, especially with having a daughter, and I do feel like we are in a different world now, and the world will probably be different in 10 years when they're closer to being an adult. But what do you hope for your kids, especially your daughter, learns about women who are labeled as difficult or too much or villainous even?
Oh, I'm gonna probably do what my mom did with me to some degree. Be a leader, not a follower. And, you know, the first look is free, the second one will cost you. I want her to be able to stand up for herself and find her voice in a positive way, and sometimes you do have to be a little snarky. I think that that's what got me in the most trouble and sarcastic. Like my kids tell jokes all the time. It's amazing. Like we only have this one life to live, and I want them to live it. Uh, I don't know. They're really good. I wish you could meet my kids. I'm trying my best to raise really kind humans, but also funny ones. But yeah, I'm going to protect her the best that I can. And I do want her. She's probably going to be villainess, and I'm okay with that.
Mm, I love that.
She
I
already
think,
is. I see it. Oh God, I already see it. And it's like if you spot it, you got it.
hmm I really see that with Parv's daughter as well, because
Really?
oh yeah, completely. And I just feel like that is so exciting to raise, like liberated young women that feel like they can just be themselves. Like that is so cool to bring that into the world and to give that gift of authenticity to a young person, especially a young woman. Like I
Yeah.
know she's like, 5,
She
but
just she just turned 4, but
oh, 4.
yeah, yeah. I just like, oh my God, it's so crazy too. They just come out with their own little essence and their own little personality, and it's like I feel like what my job is to help her cultivate that, and on my end, right? Like I'm like me, I did gymnastics. I'm like, I just found this place. I'm like, do you want to do gymnastics? Like this would be a fun thing for us to do. Like I call it girl time, and she's like,
Hmm
I don't want to. Like she is like adamant about not wanting to do gymnastics. And I'm like, okay, you're not doing it. Okay, you don't have to. When you're
I
ready,
love that.
yeah, like I'm just kind of like a go with the flow, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But if she ever wanted to go on The Bachelor someday, I'd have to sit her down for. I would hope that reality TV wouldn't be the path for her, but we are a long ways away from that.
Yeah. I on that note too, I do feel like I think there was something you mentioned that made me think of this. You said something like, "Oh, I really want them to have a life that's like full of joy." And I do
Yes.
really truly believe that when you kind of own that like being the villain and at one point in the show you're like, "I'm gonna break the rules and I'm gonna go snag Ben and like skinny dip with him," and like however it was portrayed, like I really watching it, even with the alien music in the background, I was like, wow, this is so
Yeah.
fun. And like she looks like she's having so much fun and he's having so much fun. And like,
That was the most fun I had, the skinny dipping, the whole time I was filming.
yeah, and like I really felt that. And I do feel like there is a certain kind of liberation and fun when you just say, okay, I'm just gonna break the rules and do what I really want to do. So I'm just curious if you
Yeah.
can like speak to that, if that is something that carries into your personal life as well.
Yeah, it really does. And that's like sparking joy for me because I've always been a rule breaker. My sister's like the first, the oldest, and like never miss a day of school. I almost didn't walk at graduation. Like, there's always been like this little part of me. My mom was so strict on us, and I'm really thankful for that now as a mom, but I think I've always just have like a really playful nature, and I do that with my kids now. I get to and I see them doing it with each other. Like my baby is 18 months old and he just walked up to me the other day. He barely has a lot of words and he's like tickle 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 and it's just like but like yeah, that I like to break the rules a little bit. I broke the rules a lot on the show. You just only saw a couple
Mm.
things. And yeah, I just like to have a good time and spark joy as much as I can because we live in a crazy time. And don't get me wrong, I still like to melt into the couch and binge watch my shows. Like I'm very much an introvert, somebody who needs to recharge. But yeah, you just as you get older, you just find different ways to kind of bend the rules a little bit.
Mhm. I love it.
You do. It's like a little naughty, like or a lot of naughty.
It is, and I feel like that is like a certain spice that is now being appreciated of like it's fun and sparkling and even like I'm curious if you bring that on. So you're going on a new show, or you've already filmed it, but it's coming out in
Yeah.
February. It's called Bachelor Mansion Takeover.
Yeah.
It's going to be on ADHD Live and then stream on HBO Max for anyone who's interested in watching. But I'm curious if you can like talk about how that walking into that space was different for you than the previous experience with The Bachelor.
Oh yes. Well, it's so funny. Yeah. So it's I'm so excited to I haven't been back on TV since I was 28. That was the only show I ever did. I'm 42 now, and I got this call. I had like 2 weeks to get ready for the show for HGTV, and the Bachelor Mansion Takeover. Jesse Palmer's the host, Tasha Adams and Tyler Cameron, which by the way, he is that cute in real life. And I really like it's different now because I was like, I could be gone. It's an elimination show to compete for $100,000. And so it's like back on reality TV, but at the Bachelor Mansion. So it was a little triggering for me in
Mm,
the sense of like, I'm like very full circle moment. Like, what an honor to be a part of like renovating this space that has been, like you talked about, iconic.
hmm
Um, but yeah, I went into it being like, I'm gonna bring my real estate skills into it and give it my best and try to win $100,000 for my family. Like buy a big ticket item, maybe put a pool in the house. But it was a little bit more, I don't know, stressful than I thought it would be. I have much more at stake now, leaving my kids for, they said it could be like 2, 3 days or up to, I want to say like 5 weeks. So yeah, you'll have to stay tuned to see how it shakes out. But definitely was triggering far more positive experience. But being back on TV and doing interviews and stuff like that, and being in like a very confined environment with former contestants and hearing their stories, there was definitely some bumping of the heads too. There
mm,
were some things that were really hard for me to deal with. There's definitely moments where I was like, I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze for my
mm,
mental health and how far I've come to be put back into this situation where I feel this bad.
hmm And on that note too, I'm curious because you mentioned when we were talking last week about um there was some times where you were saying, I this is my boundary in the show, or I'm gonna kind of stick up for myself because I'm feeling some injustice happening or being misunderstood happening, and I want to advocate for myself. And also, I
Hmm.
feel this sense of I want to do this, but I also don't want it to be blown up like it was last time and me portrayed as the villain. So, how did you kind of balance those two truths while you were filming?
That's so well said. Oh, Callie, that's so well said. It was a very fine dance for me and setting boundaries, speaking up for myself, and I went into it like this should be a breeze. Like I've done all this work and it's been so long and I have 3 kids now and I'm much more grounded in many ways and steady, but there was still that part of me that was like, "Oh, let's get in there and have some fun."
Mhm.
Like, "Oh, she's back." And I think that you'll see that sparkle for sure. But you'll also see that strength, and I think that comes from confidence and knowing your why. I talk a lot about my why on the show, like if I'm going to leave my family, it has to be the right opportunity. Um,
Mhm.
yeah. So, but I think the viewers will be pleasantly surprised to see, hopefully. I mean, I just remember being like, I cannot be a villain again. I cannot do it for my kids. I really hope that that comes through. Um, but then again, it's like we're redesigning the Bachelor Mansion. What could go wrong?
Well, I thought it was going to be some cutesy, like wholesome renovation show. And then you mentioned that there's the competition element and people are getting voted out. And I had no idea
I don't
that
think
that was.
people realize, like, I think it's gonna be a hit. I hope it is. Part of me is also like, "Ugh," I'm so nervous. Like, I'm had 3 kids and like there was like a swimming pool thing, and I was like, oh, I'm like still a little postpartum. Like, this
Mm,
isn't me at 28 going skinny dipping in Puerto Rico. It's like I've had 3 kids. Like I'm putting myself back out there, and how do I want to show up in the way that, I think it's people expect a certain level of kind of my essence, right? And that definitely is still in me. That's me. And you'll get that, but it took a little while to get comfortable in that setting. And, yes, you can go with the flow so many times until you feel like disrespected.
Yeah, that's fair. I
So,
think that's totally fair.
and I think once it airs, you'll probably hear a lot more about it, and we'll see how it
I'm
goes. But
looking forward to it, and we'll be Team Courtney over here on my page at least. And I'm curious, like the word villain for you, I do feel like that was something that you kind of took back, especially with your book. Like you, I know I think, I don't know if this is the only
I
cover,
love that you
but
bought it. That's the
of
only cover. You got
course.
the one with the New York Times bestseller, which, by the way,
Yes.
the hard copy didn't have that, but you got the new edition.
Oh, yes. I also think that's incredible that you were on that bestseller list. And there was, okay, not on this one, but there was another cover that I saw where it says it's like you holding a rose, and around it it says villain, Black Widow, all these
Oh, is
different
it on the back
words.
of that book? It might be on the back.
Is it? No, it's not.
Oh,
But
oh
I
my God.
swear,
You know what? It was the hard copy book. That's right. Where
because
did that go?
I saw it when I was like when I was getting posting about it last week on my story. But I think that's so cool to take back the word villain and make it into this thing that's kind of you're just taking back the power a bit. And I'm just curious, do you have a different association to those words now, like villain and man eater and stuff? Because I hear those and I'm kind of like, oh, okay, like it feels exciting for me, but I'm just curious if you have a different relationship to those words now than you did
Oh,
before.
absolutely. Absolutely. And by the way, there were a lot of guys that were attracted to villainous behavior after the show. Like I attracted like some pretty great men, actually. But I also have to that created work too, because I'm like, hey, I'm not gonna just, yeah, you saw me going skinny dipping. Like there was a fine dance with that,
Mm,
but not about love. I feel like I've always had that personality. I was a girl in high school that would stick up for my friends and not take shit from anybody. And I think you have that relationship with Parvati. So you must be much so like that yourself, that you are, I hate this like nice girl, like, ugh, like just like let your guard down, say what you feel. And that's not for everybody. But I mean, I think the technical term for villain is like immoral or somebody who does bad things. Well, sometimes bad things can be fun and
hmm
not like in a, super negative way. I'm just saying like there's something fun about being a little bit naughty sometimes. And yeah, bending the rules to get what you want. I mean, that's what Parvati does too, right? I mean, look at her. She won a
Yeah.
million dollars. She has built this beautiful life and she just wrote a book, Nice Girls Don't Win.
hmm
And there's something there, and I don't know that I have the words to it, but I feel much better being like, I still find myself depending on like the room or the setting being like, well, I was on The Bachelor, but like I was also the villain. Like when people hear that, they're like, ooh, like, the initial reaction is not positive. And
Mm,
they're like, well, why? And it's like, ugh, it's like almost better to just be like, not even meant, like, depends on the day, you know?
hmm
What about you? What do you think about, I mean, about villains or do you,
Yeah, I mean, I also had this thing written down that I wanted to bring up at some point, but like, because Ben says it was a quote from the show, and he says, "One of my fears is being with a woman that I like and that ultimately people don't like." And I thought that was so funny because like I've been with a person in the past whose family really didn't like me. And
ugh.
it's like have written here like what's the measure of a good person? Being liked or being likable? Like
Mhm.
what? Like is the only measure of being good is that I'm likable? Like that feels like such bullshit, you know? And I
Yeah.
feel like the same on the show for you. It's like well, a lot of people didn't like you on the show, but that didn't mean that you were like a bad person. And it's just interesting how it gets coupled and how it can create this like chokehold. I know for myself, I feel this like chokehold of like, well, I want people to like me because I want to be people to think I'm good and I want people to want to be my friend. And it's like, but there's something so freeing about just like maybe I'm not all good. Like maybe I
Mm-hmm.
am a little evil sometimes. Maybe I do like to talk shit. Maybe I do like to, and there's
Yeah.
something that feels more authentic for me in that of like
That's
relief.
human nature. And
It is.
it's just human nature. It's like, and I think that you're doing so much good in helping people. And I think a lot of it goes back to being understood, right?
Yeah.
And like being seen. And I just saw this thing. I've been like in my like feels like romantically lately, and it was like I'm reading this book about a Hollywood matchmaker and like your why. I always go back to your why, and like I've just always been happier when I have like a partner that really sees me and is there for me and gets me, and that's why I went on the show. But you touched on something really interesting about like a past or a mother-in-law. Like my mom and my dad's mom did not get along. I grew up around it. Like, and my mom ingrained in me, like, and she stood up for herself. And she said, never marry a man whose mom hates you. So
That's good advice.
no, it really is. And I had that map of the world. Like, I mean, firstborn son, and it wasn't like over the top, but quick fun example, like sitting down, my mom's slaving away, we're hosting her from California for Thanksgiving. We sit down at the dinner table. Clearly she's been working all day to make it special, and she looks at my dad and was like, thank you so much for making this for us, to my dad. And
Mhm.
like no acknowledgement of my mom, like it was like very difficult. So but this is something that I'm still learning, Callie, about like I want, of course you want people to like you. And when you've been canceled or like you almost have to develop new coping mechanism skills to like have that be safe for you. Um, a good example is I'm going to a lot of kids' parties these days, and I'm trying to navigate making new mom friends who are also
Mm.
in line with like my parenting style and people that I actually enjoy being around. But like I just met this mom that I really, really like. Like we just like hit it off. Like I was like, wow, you've got like a really cool vibe. And like she knows that I was on the show, but like I'm even insecure about that. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, and then she followed me on Instagram. I was like, yes, we're gonna be friends. We'll see.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And
But
that's
you, once you get over that, like if they like me, they like me. There's only so much time in the day. There's something very freeing in that.
I also feel like after I experience like getting canceled or even just that feeling in my personal life, there was a sense of like, oh, I want to prove. You kind of said this too earlier, like I
Yeah.
want to prove that I'm really actually a good person. Like, look at how nice I am.
Oh,
And
it's exhausting. It's
and then I like stopped checking in with myself of like, wait, do I like am I connecting with this person? So I thought it was cool just now how you said like, oh, I really vibed with her. I feel like that's a great like
yeah.
check-in point.
I'm still getting there, because I also like so guarded too. It's like this fine dance for me. I always say like I have to take the long way home sometimes with people to where I can trust them and just going with my intuition, which I fully believe in. But yeah, it's a wild time. I don't know. I just lost my train of thought. Squirrel. But no, I could probably talk about that, and I feel like I've already overshared, and I hope that this is helping one person because, I had such a interesting reaction from the people that watched my season, and it's still something I deal with. Like it's like, oh, they look me up, or you could see the clickbait stuff, and I really got a positive reaction from a lot of women that I gave them confidence to kind of have that villain role of like, you know, even though it was like a really, I wish it aired out differently. It could have been like a funnier villain. But anyway, I just hope that people can find confidence or it can help them in some way.
I will say, like, for myself, seeing what you've been through and watching it happen in real time and then watching it in hindsight and being like, oh, you are this like present person who has a life that it seems like you have really created for yourself, like this beautiful life, and that as someone on the outside feels like a beacon of hope of like I could almost be completely annihilated reputation wise and still come out on the other side with like a loving husband and beautiful children and this like rich, full, nourishing life,
Yeah.
regardless of being misunderstood on such a mass scale. So, like, I
Yes.
just want to say that as well of like it is inspiring to just see that you've thrived regardless of the,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's so nice to hear. Honestly, I thoroughly enjoy connecting with you. You're so smart. I'm so impressed by you, what you're doing. And I guess I was starting to say like if I could help one person, and I know that's kind of a cliche thing to say, but
And if we can, because we're kind of getting to the end here of our time, I'm just curious if there's anything that you want to leave people with, and maybe even speaking to this person who like is seeing you and they're like, oh my gosh, I also feel misunderstood, whether it's like my
yeah.
mother-in-law or it's like my boss at work or a friend or whatever, what would you say to those people?
Care less.
Yeah.
There is that imaginary audience. And I think that, like, for me, learning to set boundaries and also mental space, like, we only have the capacity to handle so much. And that's something that you talked about on my show. And I've really been actively working on applying that, right? I can get into ruminating thoughts and, like, especially as an empath and an introvert, like at night, I could wake up in the middle of the night and be like, oh, did I say this? Did I offend them? And I just turn the volume down, you know? We gotta give ourselves grace. And all I do is say is just do your best. You're doing great, sweetie.
Yeah.
But don't let them take up too much real estate in your brain. You really can't because you could go down that rabbit hole every which way till Tuesday, and that's not good for
Hmm.
your mental health. And stress and lack of sleep is not good for anybody.
Yeah. I love that.
I
Well,
wish
thank
I had
you.
something bolder to say, but like, you don't want to be like, go F yourself, but like, yeah,
Mm.
life is hard. And I think if you're dealing with a hard time, just know this too shall pass. And that's something that really helped me. And it does. Something else will happen. Something else will happen. It's like the ocean comes in, goes out, comes in, and goes out. And start your day with a fresh sunrise. Tomorrow's a new day. We all have bad days. And this imaginary audience, like most people
Mm.
are worried about keeping their own side of the street clean, I hope.
Yeah. And like what I'm really hearing you say is just gentleness with self,
Hmm.
and that
Oh,
feels nice.
yeah, gentle. Yes, exactly. And giving yourself grace to like maybe like I'm like, maybe I need a day to just love on myself a little bit and whatever that looks like for you. And I can feel so guilty for being like, I just need to unplug, not look at my phone. I will say that has been a huge thing for me is being
Hmm.
off my phone more and setting boundaries for myself, not even just with people. Um,
Yeah.
Unplugging a little bit, I think is really, there's a lot of heavy stuff that's going on in the world, and being careful about what you consume too will also help you just kind of find your way back to yourself because I have lost myself and found myself so many times in this lifetime.
Mm. Mm. I love that. I agree. I second you on the phone thing. And I also, something that, like, an essence of what you said of like just taking care of yourself made me think of I don't care. Well, I do care, but in a sense, I don't care what other people, if they think I'm bad, but I don't want to think that I'm bad. I want to always be on my own side because that at the end of the day, it's like I'm stuck with me. So I want to have my own back. And that's what I kind of heard coming through in your like
Oh, you got to. You
what
have
you
to
were
be
saying as well.
your own biggest advocate. And
Hmm.
I don't know what happened or like whatnot, but like you are just so lovely. And I'm so sorry that you had that experience. But like you said, people experience that on small scales as well. I still experience it with personal relationships too.
Hmm.
And it's just like get your toolbox ready and just like, I'm very diplomatic in very uncomfortable situations. And honestly, I just kind of remove myself from them. And I think that's something that you gave me great advice on. Like when I'm feeling burnout as a parent, is just, keeping myself safe and removing myself from even it could be close family members
Hmm.
or,
Just to get a breather.
just to get a breather or saying no to more, especially during the holiday season.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for joining. It's like such a
Anytime.
pleasure and truly like I hope that you know that you are this iconic villain and like the Mount Rushmore of reality TV villains. You broke the seal for a lot of people in that. So, yeah, thank you for coming on.
Oh gosh, anytime. And I highly recommend skinny dipping to a friend if you want to have some fun, you
Good
know?
to know.
Ah! Thanks, Callie. Thanks for
Thank you.
having me. Anytime.